So does individualism create less happiness than collectivism? You can make an argument that
it's all about the execution, I feel like.
Yeah. There's because pure collectivist societies are awful.
Yeah.
They're terrible. And I think that you would also similarly argue pure individualistic societies are terrible.
And maybe it's just been poorly executed. But when I look at like communist Russia, it doesn't seem like it's great. It seems like a lot of people were hungry.
Well, even just take you are merely a appendage of your family or your clan or your this. You are a drone bee in a thing. I think this is the tension of
when we talked about the guy that was going to leave his cult-like church, he said, I forget what, I don't think he even said what church it was, but he was part of a cult-like church. He called into the show and he said it was incredibly difficult for him because he didn't believe what the community believed, but the community was super community focused, so much so that any diversity of thought was enough to not just be frowned upon, but get you kicked out of the community.
Sure.
Didn't seem like it benefited him, and it sounded like it stressed his brother, it stressed him. He had friends who had similar stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think forcing a lack of diversity of opinion is the answer to being happy.
I would agree. Though, you can also point to, and there's people that dislike it, but Amish, like where there is more, or even take a difference between what might be your more prototypical Latin American family and your
I think Latin's a better, because there's some Amish horror stories as well.
Sure.
Costa Rica seems like a very community-based, less individualistic.
When I lived there, kids living at home with their parents, like for extended periods of time. Abuelita is there in the house.
Probably true of small. This is the other thing I was saying. Probably true of small towns in the U.S. as well. Like, I don't know if this person comes from a major city. It could be a major city in Europe too. It's not just the U.S. But if you live in a city of 10 million people, harder to have a community.
Totally. And so I think that the question becomes, weirdly, this comes back to individualism, is as you go through your life, keep your eyes open to be like, where do I flourish the most? Yeah. Is it when I am in a close-knit community such to where it's bunk beds in my room and it's, people all the time, and what comes first is harmony as opposed to my personal expression? Or is it when I'm, lone person able to be totally separate? And I do think that what you'll find is that different people operate differently. And so how should society function? Well, I ultimately do think that society, like if you want a community, as an individual, decide to enter into community.
And make one. Yeah, we have an individualistic country, I would say, but certainly not one that prohibits community.
And so and perhaps what could be done better is to show the possible benefits of community and talk, you know what I mean, and expose some of these. For instance, you watch a documentary of these people who all get together in a commune and they grow their own food, and one person does it. That's an idea that people haven't been exposed to.
Interesting. I guess I just come from my own bias. I feel like all the research shows that community is very valuable for happiness.
Yes, but that's research. And for instance, it would probably occur to you that of course the grandparents will live in their own house, separate and alone, and only move in with their kids when they were on death's doorstep.
Nah, dog. I try and get my parents to move into a house in my backyard.
Sure, but
I've already invited them.
But take a look at your grandparents. You know what I mean? Like my grandparents, they live separate. They they do that. Whereas baseline in the Latin culture is like, no. That's just not that. That would be.
Well, I think, and this is a tangent, but I think you do it from day one so that your grandkids and your grandparents have a tight relationship, such that you want them in the house. You know what I mean?
If it's appropriate for everybody. And there's some grandparents that don't want it, and I imagine
I wouldn't force it. I wouldn't force it. I'm just saying, if you're a grandparent that wants to be close to your grandkids, be available from day one to like make some sacrifices to make sure you're around. If what you want is in the future, that they'll make sacrifices to help you.
Got it.
Versus I'm in my 50s, I'm doing my own thing, like I'm ignoring my family, except for to the extent that we do holidays together, and all of a sudden I'm 80 and it's like, oh, I want to live with you.
Let's connect.
Like, right? Like, I don't remember you helping me with my homework.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on anything, but I'm just saying that the Costa Rican thing is that the grandkids feel really strongly connected to their grandparents, because the grandparents were around making sacrifices, cooking dinner and whatever it was, So yeah, if you want a community, I think it's.
So to the question was, should people be pushed into communities? And I think the answer that I would give is no, but perhaps as a society we could do a better job of exposing people to like, look, on the island of Okinawa, like the grandparents all hang out with the grandkids and they all have bingo clubs, and like that doesn't exist in most major U.S. cities. And the dream that we often talk about is to move to New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and to be an atomized individual in an atomized apartment building on the opposite side of the country from your family of origin.
Sure. And it's very possible that someone listening to this was told that community was important because they didn't grow up in the suburbs of Philadelphia like us, and maybe where they grew up there was an emphasis on that. You know, I'm not going to say that everywhere in the U.S. de-emphasizes community. Yeah. Because I think it probably depends a lot on where you're born.
Yes. But to the point of this, some of the religious groups, you don't want to force community on an individual.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, you want to invite people, preferably don't shun them. Like, you could still come for holidays, even if you don't live in the commune.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would be my take. I actually think, what should you do? As an individual, if you're an American, recognize the community actually might be far better for you than you currently recognize based on all the examples you see. That's number one. But as a society, should we push people? I don't think so.
I agree with you.
Cool. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.